Hey folks, if you were a fan of my recent horror review, today's episode is apt to be up your alley since I'll be tackling Interactive Stone's Grey Dawn, a religious horror with a distinct mystery at its heart, whose writer later worked on Last Days of Lazarus. But with all that said, was I ecstatic about my time spent with this game, or did it wind up feeling punitive? I'm your host Arlian, let's find out together. Things start with the crackle of a radio within an office. Yet another child missing from St. Mary's Church, seventh in a long line of unfortunate disappearances, with the sole suspect being its preacher, Father Abraham, you. And herein lies the mystery, because he claims innocence even to the stillness of an empty office, and yet he's plagued by lurid visions of warped realities which tease his guilt. Is he truly responsible for the death of countless children, or is the morbid trappings of his environment the work of something far worse? And at a glance, the jury seems to be out, because even the accusations laid at his feet seem supernatural in nature, warded away when Abraham prays before the cross. In fact, Grey Dawn goes a long way towards muddying the waters insofar as the truth of the situation, with its surreal setting making it difficult to parse whether the priest's visions are the result of a guilty conscience, some form of madness, the vindictive taunting of demonic presence, or some combination of the above. As for the execution, well, Grey Dawn is largely a walking simulator, guiding its players from set piece to set piece. Occasionally, there's some light bits of puzzle solving to engage with, but largely, it's simply a matter of interacting with something so it can continue to direct you along. And on this front, it's a fairly focused experience. In fact, there really isn't much in the way of optional lore to pursue beyond a quintet of optional audio logs you can discover and listen to.
I still love you. Do you remember how we met? 6 years ago, at an exhibition of paintings depicting St. Francis. I was in mourning at the time. You noticed me.
Beyond that, its narrative is generally contained within the aforementioned scenes and whatever elements the player can glean from the environment. Well, until you count the endings. There's 2 in total, with a default bad ending, and a good one which hinges on the player gradually tracking down the religious icons squirreled away in certain stages. Getting all of them can take a bit of doing, but the game is kind enough to let you know which chapters have them and how many there are in a given area, which, when paired with the game's manual save system and frequent chapter saves, means it's pretty hard to miss them if you're diligent. In fact, I found out you can't miss the first one if you happen to make a goofy decision like I did. Which, yeah, due to the nature of this game, this really does largely sum up the gameplay. There is admittedly a small segment later on which introduces a slight weather/season manipulation mechanic, but this is similar to the puzzles insofar as its rudimentary nature. More of a vehicle for just how surreal things are rather than a real challenge. So really, let's just move on to the visuals, and I have to give the game credit. It looks quite good. While the characters can be a bit uncanny when up close, the world itself alternates between grim, horrific, surreal, and fantastic as the story demands. Admittedly, there are some moments where the events look like they should leave a more lasting impression on the good father or the world at large, but the absence of these events didn't actually weaken my immersion, but rather strengthened my uncertainties about the nature of the narrative being presented to me and the extent to which I needed to doubt what was being shown to me and the narrator as a whole. Really, my only qualm with it is tied to Father Abraham's episodes. Now, I should note, it's not the red haze splashed across the screen that irked me. Rather, it was the persistent screen jitter that accompanies the whole ordeal, since these scenes are frequently accompanied by chunks of audio which help to further the story. So, if I wanted to listen to it all, I had to just deal with this perpetual bouncing. And well, I did want to hear things out, because not only was the story engrossing, the voice acting is genuinely quite good. Really, that extends to the audio as a whole. But yeah, that's more or less the Grey Dawn experience. Really, the only thing I'd failed to mention is that the few times the game has you moving things in a circular motion, the overall experience kind of sucks with a mouse, given it will fight against your efforts to turn in a consistent direction. It's a bit annoying in practice, but it seems so little that it's mostly a non-issue. As for the bulk of my judgment, well, Grey Dawn is a walking simulator, so while there are a few puzzles scattered here and there, its primary focus is on laying out its narrative, and honestly, I did enjoy my time with the game. As far as a religious horror title goes, I found myself deeply invested in where things are going. The game doesn't rely on jump scares, but instead leads players through a mystery which often leaves them just doubting the entirety of what their experience and the world surrounding them. It is just altogether uncanny and sometimes uncomfortable as an experience, especially as you watch how things click together, as you sift through the present as well as a glimpse at the past. It's just a really neat experience, and why I can recommend this game as a hit, provided you're not allergic to walking sims. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you have something to say, leave a comment, and if you enjoy my efforts to create new indie reviews and interviews, hit subscribe and the bell. For a link to my Discord, the Crit Hit Cauldron, check the description out, and also for a link to my Patreon to see reviews early and support the channel like Shrimp Mania, Greenwich Babby, and Andy Noted. Also, I have a merch house with neat swag like Crit Hit coffee mugs and shirts. So, yeah, with all that said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks, where I'll be talking about Death of a Wish. That is a spoiler, but there you go, you stuck this long.